Factories Act, 1948 is an Indian law that regulates the working conditions in factories, including health, safety, welfare, and working hours of workers. The Act applies to all factories employing 10 or more workers, and it aims to ensure that workers are protected from exploitation and that they work in safe and healthy conditions. The Act includes provisions for regulating the working hours of adult workers, employment of women and children, the use of dangerous machinery, safety measures, and welfare facilities such as canteens, restrooms, and first aid facilities. It also mandates the appointment of safety officers and imposes penalties for non-compliance. The Factories Act, 1948 is important because it provides legal protection to workers and ensures their safety, health, and welfare while working in factories. The Act helps to prevent workplace accidents and injuries, which can be caused by the use of dangerous machinery or unsafe working conditions. It also helps to prevent exploitation of workers, especially women and children, by regulating their working hours and ensuring their welfare facilities. The Factories Act, 1948 has a total of 120 sections. The sections are divided into 11 chapters, which cover a wide range of topics related to the safety, health, welfare, and working conditions of workers in factories. Some of the key chapters of the Act include: Chapter 1, Preliminary. Chapter 2, the Inspecting Staff. Chapter 3, Health. Chapter 4, Safety. Chapter 4A, Provisions relating to hazardous processes. Chapter 5, Welfare. Chapter 6, Working hours of adults. Chapter 7, Employment of young persons. Chapter 8, Annual leave with wages. Chapter 9, Special provisions. Chapter 10, Penalties and procedures. Chapter 11, Supplementary. Each chapter of the Act contains several sections that set out specific provisions related to the topic covered by that chapter. The Factories Act, 1948 is an important piece of legislation that regulates the working conditions of workers in factories and helps to ensure their safety, health, and welfare. In the legal context, an act and a rule are two different types of instruments that serve different purposes. An act is a primary source of law that is created by a legislative body, such as a parliament or a congress. It is a written law that has been passed by the legislative body and is enforceable as a law. An act typically sets out broad legal principles, standards, and procedures that govern a particular subject matter or area of law, such as criminal law, civil law, labor law, taxation, and administrative law. An act is usually more comprehensive and has a higher legal authority than a rule. On the other hand, a rule is a subordinate source of law that is created by an executive authority, such as a government agency or department, to implement the provisions of an act or to regulate a particular area of law. A rule is typically a more detailed and specific regulation that provides guidance on how the provisions of an act are to be applied in practice. A rule is usually created to supplement or support an act and has a lower legal authority than an act. To summarize, an act is a primary source of law that provides broad legal principles and procedures, while a rule is a subordinate source of law that provides more detailed guidance on how the act is to be implemented. An act has a higher legal authority than a rule, and rules are created to support and supplement the provisions of an act. In coming videos we discusses about what are the sections in the Factories Act, 1948 Chapter 1, Preliminary.